I'd love to just understand why Uber Eats need to charge a 50% markup on certain things.
Yeah.
Is that the only way a delivery business can work? Is if they make a 50% markup, which is bizarre. I freaking hate Uber Eats. And like how, what is happening because of that? Because I think a lot of restaurants are using your software to kind of go direct and try and bypass. So we could talk a bit about that.
No, perfect. Yeah, and I brought Connor into the chat. He's quite pivotal in the business from a product
Awesome.
development perspective, and figured he could add some of the things that we may be working on that's quite exciting coming
Okay,
up.
okay. Cool.
Connor,
Yeah,
what's your
that's
position?
It's product manager at Munch.
Ah, I was hoping you'd say that.
Bobby
Why is that?
Bobby's
I'm
favorite
also
type
a
of
product
people.
manager.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting time to be involved in things. It's like moving very quickly. So, yeah,
Hmm.
nice challenges to
Nice.
have.
Yeah, so Renee, you're gonna if I go down that product rabbit hole with Connor, please just step in, okay?
No, no, I'll pull you out of it.
Just we can go into it, just not too deep, It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't bore the other guys.
No, come on.
But
Product is not boring. Welcome, builders, to How Would You Build It? The podcast that dives deep into the dynamic world of startups and product creation right here in South Africa and Africa. This show is more than just interviews. Every week, we sit down with the brilliant minds to provide a masterclass for building digital products amidst the challenges and opportunities unique to our continent. From seasoned founders to dynamic product managers, we uncover the unique stories and strategies behind some of the most innovative digital products being built. So, for all the aspiring founders and product builders out there, you'll discover that each episode is a wealth of practical wisdom and local and actionable insights. Make sure to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to our podcasts and connect with us on social media for even more content. Now, let's dive into today's episode.
Yeah, so
Right.
maybe just the background. So myself and O'Connor actually both come from the retail corporate world,
Yeah.
as well as a lot of the guys that work with us come from the corporate world on retail, always in the software side. And so, myself worked in SAP, a lot of retail customers locally and as well as overseas. And I was always fascinated by it seemed like whenever I go to a restaurant, the technology was left behind in the dark ages. And
Mm.
so I sort of left the corporate world to start my own consultancy initially to sort of figure out what I wanted to do. We got into e-commerce and developing sort of retail point of sale, logistics, inventory solutions. But it kept coming back to me that every time I go to a restaurant, it seems very archaic. And so I actually came up with this idea for Munch initially to be more of a marketplace, very much like Uber back in the day. But instead of delivery, it would be sort of the in-house dining, so in-seat dining events. If you go to like Barnyard, it seems silly that you'd miss half the show trying to get in line for a beer or a pizza. So I had this vision of being able to
Mm.
order stuff, and you could get notified when it was ready, so you can just go for that minute, or they could even deliver it to you. And so that was sort of the initial concept really about where Munch came along. It was to be able to split bills with friends when you go out, so that there's none of this awkwardness at the end of the night when you're trying to figure out who had those extra 6 tequilas because that guy left very early. And so for me, there
Need
It
was a
must
lot
John.
of,
start somewhere.
for me, it was all of this, like, I just wanted a better customer experience for myself. And
Okay.
so, we developed the initial prototype around Munch, and then ran into this reality that if we wanted to make this work, we needed to integrate with the point of sale that was in the restaurant. And that's where we hit like a brick wall, because this technology was 30 years old. You couldn't even talk to these companies essentially about
Mm.
an integration. If they did take your call, it was hundreds of thousands of rands to get them to the table to do an integration. So it was like a
Mm.
cold start, without an integration where that order gets into the kitchen to be prepared. It's a non-starter, because you don't want another tablet there that just pops up and then
Mm.
it's one of six tablets already there. So we started doing a bit of a deep dive, trying to understand like why is this technology so old, and eventually we came to the conclusion it's just old because nobody has an incentive to refresh it. A lot of these restaurants are tied into like a 5-year contract. So there's no incentive to roll out like a SaaS model where you get weekly updates and improvements. It's pretty much like vendor lock-in, and then that's it. So we actually decided that we're going to take our e-commerce knowledge, our retail knowledge, and build a platform from scratch that's essentially going to just free up these businesses to actually start innovating, creating better customer experiences, doing like integrations. And I'm talking about now like 5.5 years back, when we sort of started with Munch. So obviously things have progressed, but at that point, it was pretty much nothing was happening, nothing was seemingly going to change. This is just before COVID. And we then actually broadened the scope of Munch to say, okay, we're going to start with a point of sale. We're going to add the inventory, and the inventory is very complex in a restaurant, because when you sell a plate of food, you're actually selling one bun, a slice of cheese, one patty, X grams of butter. And so it's very intricate, the stock management that's behind it. So that for the first 4 years, we basically just built the engine and the base of the system to be on sort of feature parity so that you could run a business on it. And that was quite a long and frustrating process for us to go to, because we'd build it and we get to a restaurant and they'd say, great, can I do commission? And we're like, oh no, let's go build commission. And so we went through like this seemingly endless like loop of just trying to catch up to feature parity. And like eventually we broke through that ceiling, that glass ceiling of because these guys, obviously the existing incumbents, had like decades of building all these little nuanced features that many restaurants need. So our big breakthrough came sort of last year when we started getting into Wimpy and Steers, Debonair's in a very small way, through just pilots and things like that.
And Wynand, if I can jump in there, I mean that is a complex thing to do, right? Because you're talking about a franchise, where there's a franchise owner, and they typically get told, you have to use this software. This is how it works. Can you maybe speak to how you got in there and got them to try it, and what was that journey like?
Look, I would say we relentlessly pursued them.
The franchise or the franchise owner?
The franchise owner, really, because
Okay.
coming from an enterprise software background, I sort of know how decisions flow from a certain direction. You've got to get buy-in from the right channels to be able to do something. So we really put ourselves out there. Well, firstly, we created a lot of credibility, right? So we had a lot of restaurants that were independents that used us. We got into smaller franchises. So it was really like a staged approach of building up credibility to the point where we could say, we work with these and these customers, give us a try. And so finally, we managed to get into a pilot phase with them. And I think in many ways, the timing for us was also beneficial because, like I said, over the years, all of the incumbents were sort of not really innovating and doing anything. And that obviously frustrates a lot of franchises. And, a lot of them are sort of locked into not being able to push new customer experiences, loyalty programs. They can't. To give an example, if you wanted to quickly do a promotion because Dricus du Plessis won the fight, you've got a 3-week turnaround time to get a new product launched countrywide in the franchise. With our platform, it's 2 minutes countrywide and you're live. So it's sort of that e-commerce thinking of like, you need to be agile, you need to be able to get to market quickly. And if you think about Uber Eats, you have that flexibility there. That's the sort of expectation and benchmark. But yet when you go to on-premise dining, you're dealing with a dinosaur. So I think that was really what we could illustrate and demonstrate, that it is a 10x improvement in terms of productivity, in terms of being able to react to market changes, getting real-time insights into what's happening. And that was really just, like I said, it was a 4-year journey to have the privilege to just prove yourself one more time.
But so understanding the restaurant industry, I can imagine that whatever the incumbent is, let's say it's pilot, that they're very sticky, right? Like it's something that they are used to, and restaurant owners will want to stick with it because they know how to use it. It does what it asks, what they need it to do. So innovation isn't at the front of center. There's like, does it do the stuff? Does it submit orders and send it to the kitchen? And does it give bills? And does it do a roundup at the end of the day, right? So like those are your main sort of functionalities. If it does that, I don't need innovation because I'm selling my product. So I'm quite curious about that. I mean, once you're building your own, you're now breaking into the whole business because now you, like you said, you started talking about the burger patties and the cheese and because now you can
Yeah.
actually help end to end. So my question is actually, how did you navigate that? Did you when you came to these franchise owners, were they running two systems at the same time while they were converting over, or did they have to let go of Pilot so that they'd used Munch?
Yeah, so it was there's definitely a immediate transition. So there's no like phased approach.
No.
Um,
So it's called Turkey. Here's your new
yeah,
system.
but if you've used any of these old systems, you also know that it's like very difficult to use it. It's not user friendly.
Mm,
So most of the feedback and benefit we give is like as you get new staff, you don't have to spend so much time to upskill and learn them because if you put the two systems sort of side by side, there's a much higher learning curve for somebody
mm,
new entering the workforce on these old systems because they're sort of
Mm.
backwards. Whereas if you look at what we're doing in Munch, it's much more like a modern user experience, and I think that's really there's also a transition of ownership really from generation to the next, where if you take like somebody that's just starting a business and you give him this old system and he probably has very different expectations
Yeah,
to
well,
Yeah.
I mean, the guys nowadays are used to like modern user interfaces and things like that, right? So it's all
Mm.
about familiarity. And a simple thing that we introduce is like product images on your menu that you can browse as a point of sale user, like the cashier.
Mm.
And for example, just to be able to navigate that menu quicker already has a exponential improvement on your performance and efficiency. And that alone, we could see you can onboard new waiters a lot quicker because of that.
yeah.
so
Mm.
And it's like
something
you want to
else.
sell nachos, you see the nachos, press the nachos button.
Yes, it's familiar to them, right? Like the layout and things. It's like browsing Facebook or your app layout is familiar to the
Mm,
users.
Yeah, so
interesting.
another advantage really is that, if you think about the old systems, it's a PC in the back of the room
Mm.
and it sort of stays there. Where
Or
what
someone
we've
just
done,
underneath the monitor right there in the
The
middle of the
disk there,
restaurant.
full of
yeah, so
dust, running
what
Windows
And
we've done,
oil.
XP.
Or Linux.
Oh wow.
so what we've done is we've got this mobile device that the waiter takes to your table and they take your order on it and the payment. So there's no running around looking for the speed point. The order literally gets into the kitchen a lot quicker. So
Mm.
if you now talk to a franchisee or a restaurant owner about like why would you use Munch, one of the big benefits is that turnaround time of how quickly you can turn tables in your peak periods.
Mm.
Because for every bit of latency you introduce into your customer experience, it literally costs you money.
Mm.
Mm.
Uh, so that's the one benefit. And the other thing is just we've automated so many processes. An example is Cash Up. Cash Up used to be this laborious process where you literally write out how much cash did you receive, how much this, and it would be like a
Cancel your
manual
slips.
piece of paper. And it wasn't this integration between like payments and what's happening on the POS, like you see in retail, right?
And who pays
So
in cash now
Mm.
anyways, right? So it has to be all digital. So if I'm a waiter, then I need my tips. I suppose there must be a bank transfer now, not a keep your cash that you didn't have to give in, right?
yeah, so I mean, there's still some cash in the system depending on where you are.
Mm,
And then we deal with all of these scenarios, but ideally you want to sort of move away from cash to reduce fraud, reduce the sort of admin
Mm.
that goes with it. But yeah, I think in a nutshell, if it's when you compare like the old systems to what we have today, it's like a really
Mm.
a fundamental shift in how you operate. It's not like a small step
So,
change.
so I'm interested to understand what triggered, the need for these restaurants to think, cool, I need to upgrade, because I think it's similar for in different industries, right? We now point in time where a lot of software that's out there that's still getting used is 30 years old. It was built in the late 90s. It was iterated over time. But there were obviously some world events. Obviously, COVID played a big role. I'm sure you can speak to that. But what was the culmination of events that led to this aha moment where you're gonna there's now enough momentum to say, I want to check out this old system and I want something new. I think you've mentioned some of it, but
Yeah.
I'd love to understand, like, what are some of the key things that you think actually resulted in people going, I want this.
Well, I think a large part of it was COVID. You had this sort of a lot of restaurants closing and going under, and then when you start, you reevaluate things like, why am I still
Mm,
doing all this, things in the old way? As an example, we give a owner an app that he can manage his restaurant remotely from the golf course or wherever he is, versus having to physically be on premise to see what's going on. So
mm,
he can, for example, do a void over his phone and authorize something like a
mm,
refund, etc. Whereas before you physically had to be on site day and night. So I think it sort of unlocks a bit of freedom. But I think a big part of this change is a generational change of owners coming into
mm,
into the into this industry, and it's new expectations around customer experience, user experience. So I don't think it's one or two things. I really think it is
it's a combination.
it's a combination of things. And what we're sort of working towards now is introducing more automations to increase sort of efficiencies and the cost of running these businesses, because that's
Mm,
another contributor that all of the admin and the processing that you need to do to run it. I've spoken briefly about like the inventory, but all of that like stock that you have to receive takes hours to capture. So we're working on how to optimize that
mm,
process and make it sort of almost more cost effective than employing dedicated staff to just do that one admin process.
Mm.
mm.
So if I may ask you, kind of, how long have you been working with Munch as the product manager?
I've been with Munch for about 4 years now.
Okay, cool. So you've been there pretty much from the beginning. So I'm curious to know, because I mean, it's such a cool concept. It's an easy one, right? To understand when you're building product. It's not that innovative. It's a maybe for some, I don't know, but it seems like a
It
very
gets tricky in the
straightforward.
details. Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, once you dive in, like with anything, once you look under the bonnet and you start understanding the wiring, it's always a different story. So my question is actually the user feedback, right? So you've said it's a COVID, it's a new people that you're marketing to, you're learning, you're building for. Can you just explain your user feedback loops that you are utilizing at Munch? So like you release a feature, for example, and you show it to people. Can you just tell us about that journey and how you are knowing what the market is looking for?
Yeah, well, I think initially it was sort of very informal, right? Obviously, when you're launching a product, you want to be very close to your customers. So we spent a lot of time on the ground. We spend nights doing stock counts with customers, going through cash out procedures, actually going through the go lives with the customers ourselves, right? And during those processes, you pick up a lot of information. But
Mm,
as we've now started scaling and stuff, we've had to sort of formalize those channels. So, for example, we've got a dedicated support team who sort of act as a very nice feedback loop for us.
nice.
We've got strict sort of reporting mechanisms in place to identify issues quickly or identify feature requests that come up frequently.
Mm,
And then on the other side is we have sort of a subset of franchise owners that we work with. Sort of, let's call it
champions.
the champions, exactly. And those guys are sort of the voice for the rest of the guys. And working with them, they sort of qualify all of the core requirements and things like that, and then
Hmm.
feedback that information back to us. And we've got
Brilliant.
frequent meetings and check-ins with them to understand sort of what's their needs, where do we need to
Mm,
move to next. And just by
amazing.
going through those sort of having those few channels available to us, like the support side, your champions feeding information back, and then
Mm,
still spending some time on the ground, we get quite a lot of information and we can
mm.
qualify it.
Awesome. So when I look at a pilot that's in the market now that most people are using, I would say that this could be a value proposition that you have. You're on the ground. and you're getting that feedback, you're kind of understanding what the needs of the market is right now today. So my question then is, how do you stand out against pilot? Is it something like you get that feedback? Are you able to execute on those feedbacks quickly and hear to them? Could you just speak to that, like getting that feedback and actually turning it into a feature that they can start using and giving you a new set of feedback, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we as a business, we're growing very quickly. Our team's grown exponentially over the last few months due to the sort of need that we see the customers have, right? We're launching a lot of sites each month, but more so is we also launching new features on an almost a weekly basis. And that basically just comes back to the us being wanting to ship very quickly, get the feedback from customers, and iterate on that to build a better product. I mean, for us, the most important part is probably the feedback. So it doesn't help us sitting on a new feature for months till it's sort of perfect and then getting it out there. We'll rather sort of listen to the customers, understand what they want, ship it, and then we can iterate and improve on it. And at least in that regard as well, they can see change quickly, and yeah, we
So
can
out
work
of the
together.
things, yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, out of those things that you've built, what makes you stand out above Pilot now?
Well, for one, the mobile point of sale is a massive feature set in itself, right? We've also built new things, for example, being able to transfer stock between stores. So we've got this model called Hub and Spoke, where we basically have a centralized, let's call it factory shop, that can actually then transfer stock to sort of the satellite stores. That, for example, is very valuable where you've got smaller stores all over the place, but a big central kitchen. That's, for example, a new feature that we brought in recently to benefit a lot of the sort of bigger stores.
Yeah, but I
Very
would say
cool.
like sort of just the platform in itself gives us the ability to quickly develop a feature, get it out there. Whereas on these legacy systems, they are on like a biannual release. You know, it's like fundamentally different, once you go into the cloud and mobile. The other thing that I think is quite interesting is that we can take a single small handheld device and run a coffee shop on that, and then scale that up to like a Mug and Bean where you've got 8 KDSs in the kitchen, you've got, 20 waiters. It sort of scales really well. And so we can cater to many different market segments. If you're a fast food with a drive-through, we can help you there. And it's like very configurable. So the one thing about like Munch, and I think any sort of enterprise solution, is that you build one piece of software, but it needs like 6 different configuration options so that it caters for everybody's use case. And that's obviously also difficult to test, because when you develop something, and you change it, you might be affecting one use case sort of without knowing it.
That's where the SAP background comes in really handy, right? The king of configuration.
100%.
So
It
tell
can be
me,
a nightmare at times.
so you're building a product, and as you guys are speaking, you hear about this product, but you're actually talking about a lot of sub products, right? I mean, a stock management system for a restaurant is a product in itself, and
Yeah.
ordering system is a product in itself, and POS is a product in itself, and so you're building all of these products. Where did you start, and when did you decide, okay, we've nailed this part, yeah, and then started adding, the other products to make this product a more
Yeah.
fuller
So
one-stop solution.
I think you touch on an interesting point, because we could specialize in any one of these things. We could just do front of house, just do back of house, just do online. The
Yeah.
challenge is that for a restaurant or a small group, they don't have the staff and the expertise to try and integrate a bunch of things to get a customer experience going. So it was sort of a deliberate decision that says we're going to build this one system, and it's the only thing that a restaurant needs to run their business with. And it's sort of a modular approach to say you can start with point of sale and later on embrace the inventory management side things,
Launch
and
it
you can sort of,
online.
yeah. So for us, it's a way to sort of have products within Munch that we can sort of over time upsell to customers where it adds value to them. But for us, just to focus on one aspect would have meant a ton of integrations and, cost in those integrations and maintaining them. So it was like sort of a very deliberate decision to say there's a set of products that we have commonly identified everybody needs. And we're going to focus on those products and build those out so that you don't need a bunch of integrations, because it also becomes costly, so
To manage them and to maintain those integrations are really pricey. But speaking about integrations, I mean Uber Eats, they kind of have a focus area of going, we're just going to do online. And obviously integrates with all of the restaurants and places orders that way, or sometimes they have the tablets down there. But I've got a very specific question about just the business model of Uber Eats. Like the other day I was ordering Freie Burger. Shout out to Bertus Basson, he makes the best burgers in South Africa. But I was ordering a Freie Burger, and Uber Eats charged me something like 160, 170 rand for a burger, which I know Bertus sells for 110 rand. And I'm like, I don't understand why they charge me 30 rand for a delivery plus mark up my food by 50%. Is that the only way to make a delivery business profitable, or are they
look, I think firstly,
are they extremely profitable? What's going on here?
well, I don't know Uber Eats specifically, but I think Uber is not profitable, last I checked.
Yeah,
But I think what you got to understand is firstly, their cost base is in US dollars, right?
yeah.
So that extra $50 that you're paying for them doesn't mean much. It means a lot
No,
to you.
they don't think it's a lot.
Yeah, so let's just say that as a baseline, that's the cost base of where the software is running, where the engineering is happening. Then secondly, there's a lot of hands in the pot. You've got the driver, you've got, Uber themselves, and, there's a lot of, I suppose, cost that goes into maintaining that bike. So I don't know how profitable the delivery side of it specifically is, but if you look at it from a consumer perspective, there's a markup on the food, but then there's also a charge to you. There's a platform fee and
Yeah.
all sorts of fees. And I actually took a
Exactly.
look at a statement of one of our customers once that sort of showed this is my statement I get from these delivery platforms. And then over and above like the cut they take, they even charge them like a marketing fee and a platform fee, and I would actually think it's more than 50% probably if you really start adding everything up, that gets
A
deducted.
listing fee and
But it's clearly solving a problem because everyone's using it.
And it's convenience, right?
but I mean that really leads to, I mean, what you guys are offering your clients is the ability to launch their own delivery services, right?
Not at the moment. So what we offer now is more, if you can imagine, you're the hairdresser across the coffee shop, and you order sort of your food or your coffee from them, and it's within like sort of walking distance. It's not made at the moment to compete with Uber over like
Okay.
a long distance where there's a bike and a driver involved. This is more, I'll give you an example again, like in our office building, the coffee shop runs it, and then people in the boardroom will order coffees and whatever, and it'll come up to them. So it's sort of bridging a bit of a niche market at the moment.
Yeah, so it's good for pickup, right?
Yeah, pick up, order
Yes,
ahead, that
perfect.
sort of stuff, ordering seat. But that's currently like a very small, I would say, focus for us. We're trying to just scale the point of sale inventory management side and sort of circle back eventually when we've got enough of these guys on the platform to be able to really do something in that consumer facing space.
I can literally see O'Connor's roadmap and backlog busy churning there in the back. He's
Yeah,
like,
there's a
oh
lot.
gosh, I'd better put that on the roadmap by next year.
Trust me, it's there.
Yeah, oh, is it? I'm sure it is. It makes sense. It makes sense what Renier is suggesting. So you guys seem to be moving along quite nicely, and it was announced in October 2023 of a deal with Famous Brands, which is Steers and Wimpy. So can you just tell us about that journey and leading up to that deal?
Oh, so I think with them doing the pilot and everything, we sort of met all the people there, and I think struck uh, common ground with them in terms of what they wanted to do with their business, what their challenges were. And I think it's been in the last year like a really good partnership between us, really positive. It's helped us a tremendous amount to be able to understand sort of what happens at enterprise scale for that specific industry. So it's opened up our sort of eyes to really what they deal with at scale and how we can cater our software to solve specific challenges at like the highest scale. Because pretty much if we operate at that scale, we can easily take it down to a smaller franchise and bring a lot of those sort of best practices and things into the solution. So yeah, it's been a good journey. They've been an amazing customer to us. Like with any partnership, it can go both ways. We've seen a lot of these sort of partnerships and deals go astray, but for us, it's been really positive, and they've only been like a benefit to us. But we're also not in each other's ear all the time. So we sort of treat them on the one end as a customer, and then we have a completely different group of people that we deal with that's on our investors, on our cap table. And it's very different conversations in general.
Yeah, and I think
Interesting.
that's good to have because at least you keep each other honest through your engagements.
Yeah. And has this in any way influenced your ability to deal and work with some of their competitors?
Not at all. I mean, for us, we operate completely separate. There's no day-to-day operational involvement from them, decision making. They literally have a board seat with us, and it's very high level sort of financials. How are we doing as a business? How's things going on that end? But I think we've said from the start, we want to try and build Munch into as big a business as it can, and therefore we need to work with every possible customer, regardless of, whether they're part of the Spur Group or anybody else. So there's no restrictions, limitations. In fact, we're talking to a lot of other franchises.
Okay.
That's cool. Yeah, I saw your website even says going Africa. So you've got big ideas, big dreams.
Yeah. I think the opportunity is there, so we're trying to make the best of it.
Yeah, and I think a partner like Famous Brands, I mean, they're obviously quite present up in Africa, so they obviously can take you with wherever they go, which I think is definitely a benefit. But speaking of them coming on board on the as an investor, I did a bit of stalking on the Insights tab on LinkedIn. I saw around about mid 2023, you were about 14 employees, and then around about the Famous Brand deals, it started ramping up. You're now at about 44, according to LinkedIn. How accurate is that, by the way?
We're actually like 70 people at the moment.
Oh wow! So you've got a bunch of people that LinkedIn doesn't know
It's on
about. That's
LinkedIn,
amazing.
Yeah, so a lot of that scale is an operational side. So we're doing
Okay.
installations, training with restaurants. We're sort of countrywide. So in this week, I think we did 12 installations everywhere between like Melkbosstrand and Tsenin. So it's that's sort of what was required for us to, because you can't choose where your next customer will be, right? I mean, you can say, I just want to service Cape Town, but that's quite limiting. So we're sort of, we've gone already a bit outside of South Africa into like Botswana and Lesotho, for example, but it's sort of all over, Free State, Limpopo, you name it. So we send techies in to go do these installations and training. So a big part of that growth was on the operational side to scale that. That was quite small before. Like Connor said, we did a lot of the installations ourselves.
And that at least.
Yeah, but then on the
You
dev
gotta earn your stripes.
Yes, exactly.
on the dev side, we've probably like doubled at least our team. We put a significant investment into like QA. We've got a few new products that product enhancements that we're working on. Like, for example, we're going to launch a self-service terminal within like this month still. So a user can go and sort of place his order at a kiosk. So sort of what you would be used to.
We see at McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly. So put a lot of effort into that because that's sort of where the market's going in the QSR space. So lots of stuff happening in that space.
And do you see most opportunity for you to go vertical or horizontal? Like, do you want to go up and down the supply chain of restaurants, or do you see more opportunity in going wider and adding, more feature sets and enabling restaurants to do more of what they've been doing already?
No, I think we want to go more vertical, more specialized for restaurants and food services, but food service businesses. So there's a
Mm.
whole segment of catering, for example, that if we wanted to, we could get in there and do corporate catering. There's a gap in the market there at the moment.
Hmm,
Okay,
interesting.
very interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that. So yeah. And so just interested to know when you've got an incumbent like Pilot, for example, how did you go about getting your pricing strategy together? Can you just give us a very high level approach on how you got to your pricing and your tiers?
Yeah, so we didn't target any one specific competitor. There's quite a few local competitors and there's a few international competitors. Um, so we sort of looked at various models, but I think the one thing that we wanted to stay away from is just copying what was the norm. So as an example, most of the local competitors will bill you per terminal that you have in your restaurant. So if you have 5 terminals, it's 5 times X. If you have 10, it's 10 times. So we charge like a flat fee per restaurant, regardless of the amount of terminals that you have. And the reason for that is we want you to have as many as that makes sense. So if you want to
Yeah,
give
you
every
get more
waiter a
value.
terminal, you
Yep.
do it. So, we sort of try to balance what we need as income that makes sense versus sort of what everybody else is doing. And in fact, we have quite a different model that we're trying at the moment where we're doing sort of usage-based pricing, but it's sort of for a lot of the coastal regions that are very, seasonal
Mm,
businesses. We have a model where we don't have a fixed monthly fee. It's sort of you pay relative to your turnover. And that's been seemingly well received, for example, in
is
the
it?
market. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
well, the
that's
nice thing
interesting.
is that it comes back to cash flow. So at least when there's cash in.
Yeah, it makes
Mm.
sense. Well, you're helping them become profitable by selling more. And so when that's happening in a season, yeah, that makes sense. Very interesting.
But I love that also because I mean, running a SaaS product, I mean, the cost of servicing a customer is quite low, right? I mean, you've got your capital outlay in developing the software and some support elements, so you can effectively reduce cost in lower usage
Mm,
seasons.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've been doing a similar model for events. So a lot of the rugby stadiums and it's like
Mm.
concerts, there's a company that uses our software to sell food through all of the food stalls. And again, their business is like only on weekends. So
mm,
and not consistently. There's certain peak periods where there's a lot of events. So then again, that sort of usage-based model works well with them.
mm. So with all the companies that you're sort of vertically getting into, you are collecting a lot of data. You must have some insights in where AI is going in the food industry and where share your nuggets. Let's go.
Yeah, I think there's lots of little interesting things that we've picked up. Just you talked about like how do we collect usage? So definitely we collect data about like how people are using the system, and we can pick up, for example, how certain features affects the time it takes to place an order. So there's lots of little efficiency things, operational things. But longer term, with the information we have, we definitely can see a lot of patterns in terms of spend, in terms of, how if you just overlay like the weather versus the type of meals that's being bought, you can clearly see like a correlation to those sort of
Uh,
things.
Plug in an
And
LLM
and
into your weather app and get more ice cream this weekend.
Yeah, no, your analytics and your insights are going to really be a game changer down the line. And then I think the other space where there's definitely room for like AI and things is in process automation. So like tedious processes that are fairly simple but take a lot of time to start automating. Things like receipting your goods in on a daily basis. Those type of sort of processes we can then look at automating for you.
Yeah, those manual
uh,
processes are very error prone, and that's the number
Yes.
one cause of like our support is somebody captured 500 kilograms versus 500
grams.
milligrams or whatever, and then all of your costing is out. So we're looking at ways of reducing these errors
Mm.
to reduce our
So,
support effectively.
so tell me, Bernard, you touched on something very interesting. And, when the weather changes, people order certain food and, that kind of stuff changes. Do you see a product in that in the future? Because I can imagine now if you start using AI models to identify these kind of trends, right? You could effectively alert all your customers that have Thai green curry on the menu to go. It's a good time to do this. I don't know, search pricing because you can make more money. I mean, there's a lot of interesting
Oh,
things one
search
can probably
pricing at
do.
a restaurant. Looking for
No,
trouble there,
don't hate me. I'm just thinking about the business
Yeah,
owner here that could make more money, or reduced pricing in
yeah.
certain times based on certain insights to ultimately optimize profit based on minimum wastage. Because I mean you're doing inventory, right? And I mean we all know
Yes.
like food wastage is the number one thing that can sink a restaurant. Like if you
Mm.
you throw away too much food, you're gonna die. So now looking at that, looking at ordering data, looking at patterns, weather, time of year, time of month, all those things together, I'm sure there's a product there that could say, let's help optimize what you have in terms of stock in order to make maximum profit and minimum wastage.
Yeah, so I mean, you spot on with that example. For us, it's about optimizing based on the data we have, your spend, what you're buying. So if
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I mean, to say like it's raining today is like a very short time. So there, you
Sure.
might do something with marketing rather, but
Yeah.
it's more to look at like the month ahead or the week ahead and say, you need to order the sort of stock because the number one issue is like stock outs. That costs you money if a customer walks in, to buy
Mm.
something, it's not available. I'm sure you've had that experience yourself.
Yeah, the
So
ice cream machine at McDonald's not working.
well,
Yes,
that's a
exactly.
different
That's a common
But
one.
that's a
that's a
different
different
story.
problem.
But yeah, I suppose it's about preventing stock outs, which leads to bad
Yeah.
customer experiences, etc. So
Mm. And also, we had a guest on not too long ago who was telling us about how important space within a restaurant is important. So, like, you don't want to buy too much of something because you're gonna have to store it somewhere. So it's also about like optimizing the space
Optimal
within your
experience.
kitchens to optimize all the stuff. Yeah. So I thought that was also quite interesting.
yeah, and again, coming back to staff, right? If you put all of this information in somebody's head and he's your manager and he leaves, for you to retrain the next
Uh,
person to understand the buying pattern, the customer sort of pattern, because essentially what's happening today is you hope this person will get it right. And so what we're trying to do is translate that, take the data and help whoever that person is that week on working there to make informed decisions about what he needs to order next to run this business. And I think that's
mm,
ultimately the big difference, right? Is you're moving away
mm,
from trusting a single person with making good decisions and rather supporting anybody to make good decisions.
mm. So, Venant, what has been the hardest part about building this business? Or what was surprisingly hard as you went on this journey of building it?
Surprisingly hard was the scope.
Mm,
I think any product that you want to take on, you can sort of sit back. I remember doing like the initial spec, and there's a couple of PowerPoints, and I thought I was done. And like the sheer magnitude of like all of the little features and
mm.
nuances that you need to
Complexity.
actually support, it's complexity and it's compounding complexity. I
Um,
think what's also interesting is that because we built it sort of from scratch, starting with the first line of code, um, we could also circumvent a lot of the issues that the existing systems have. So as an example,
mm,
many of the existing systems specialize in one category. So you'll get like Micros that specializes maybe in sit-down restaurants, and you'll have like Aura that specializes in QSRs, and each one picked like a very specific niche,
mm,
and that limited their business quite significantly. Whereas we sort of from the start made it quite flexible. So we can go,
mm,
QSR, sit down, fine dining, we can go a combination of retail and food. So yeah, I think the pleasant surprise was to sort of see that we did it right. The unpleasant surprise was just the scope and the magnitude of
mhm,
I didn't think it was going to take 4 years to get to sort of product market fit
Yeah.
phase, you know.
And I mean, just to go off of what Bainan's saying, like often we joke internally saying we're building a mini ERP, because that's basically like where
Well, I
we
don't
hit.
think it's a joke. It is what you're doing.
No, 100%.
It started as a joke. And
We
then
say
you,
it's a joke to make ourselves feel better.
Okay. No, I mean, as soon as you start talking about stock receiving and, now you're integrating financial information and orders, now all of a sudden, it's definitely a ERP, which
Oh,
actually also then it makes sense if you look up and down the value chain, the further the ERP can integrate into the value chain, the better, obviously, experience it can give to the user. So it makes a lot of
yeah.
sense.
Are
Cool.
we
Bobby?
wrapping up, Renier? Should we go to the lightning
Yeah.
round? Okay. I don't think they were warned. So, guys, we end off every episode asking
Oh,
our
no.
guests a round of
Okay.
lightning questions. You have to just answer the first thing that comes to your mind. We'll see how it goes, but I think I'll get you guys to both answer the questions, but try and keep it quite succinct, right? So we can get both your insights, right? So the first question is, what is your favorite restaurant? Bernard, you go first.
turn and tender.
Oh, I was gonna go.
Yes, the steaks.
Clearly, they're
It's
from
actually, I
Pretoria.
changed my mind. It's salsa. It's salsa.
Okay,
No,
so
Nice.
I'll go for turn and tender.
okay,
Yeah,
so we got a
Nice.
bit of Mexican, a bit of beef. So cool. Um, so then, what favorite book or book recommendation do you have? And so, O'Connor, I want a product management book from you, and Vaynant, you can go from your side. But what product book, O'Connor?
I'm reading the book now, but I can't remember the name. You're putting me on the spot. A Diary of a CEO. It's not
Is it?
necessarily exactly product related, but brilliant read.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
Bartlett.
Yeah, for me, it was Good to Great.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
Jim
nice.
Collins.
Cool. And then we look for advice, right? So in your realm, so Vaynant as the founder, CEO, and O'Connor in your product management, what advice would you give to somebody that's coming up into this world? They're fresh, trying to do this in their own career or journey. Vaynant, you go first again. Piece of advice.
So I would say like go and learn a specific industry, get some domain expertise. If whatever you want to eventually build, you need to lean on that domain expertise. You need to know something very specific because else you're going to learn it as you build, and that's a lot more difficult than coming in with some insights or some like clue at least about what this industry is and what it needs. So that would be my advice.
Love it.
Oh, you stole what I wanted to say.
Oh, you can't, Connor, you
No,
can't
I
do
know,
that,
but
eh?
I'm
You
serious.
can't keep doing
I
that.
wanted to say listen and learn, but I'll quickly think of something else.
So double down and listen and learn.
Well, for me, it goes about right. When you want to develop something new, listen to the customer what they need. Build a viable version, not MVP necessarily, but something that's going to at least meet their requirements to an extent that they can use it, and then learn from that. Learn from their feedback, and then iterate as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Spoken like a true product manager. And with
I
that,
mean,
we'll
you need to
start
move
wrapping.
quick. That's the thing, right? So it's
Sorry,
important.
say that again.
You need to move quick. If
Mm,
you move slow, you're going to fall behind. So I think that's
mm.
what it comes down to.
That's why I was asking about execution from your development side, because you can do all the feedback, get all the feedback, but it's pointless if you can't release, if you can't send value to the
Yes.
market, then it's pointless. That's why
Well,
I asked
maybe
that
just
question.
on that, what I would want to also say is to be able to do that, you need a strong technical team, right? If your sort of
Mm,
core principle or your core technical principle is very strong, then you can at least execute.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you guys have got a nice, fresh chunk of code there that I'm very jealous about right now. Um, Look after it, is all I'm going to say. That's my advice for today.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you.
Renier, anything before you say goodbye?
No, I'm done. Thanks. It was an awesome conversation. Thanks for joining, guys.
Oh, thanks for the invite, and yeah, looking forward to the next newsletters.
Nice one.
Brilliant. With that,
Yeah, thanks, guys. Great meeting you.